The Could Be Better podcast is sponsored in part by Old Mother Brewing Company, located in the heart of downtown Frederick at 526 North Market Street. Not only does the brewery play host to a ton of Could Be Better shows, but it offers the tastiest beers and cocktails around. Looking for something refreshing and crushable? Try their Hank, which is great for a laid back summer afternoon. In need of a cozy, heavy stout? Give the Callisto, which took home Best in Show honors at the 2022 Maryland Craft Beer Competition, a try. To learn more about the brewery, including what they have on tap each day, visit www.oldmother.com or on Instagram at Old Mother Brewing. Welcome in to our Fred Fest recap extravaganza. How are you, Chris?
Wow, I am unprepared, but here. It's been a minute. Hi.
Yeah, I know. I get the feeling you don't quite miss me, and that hurts my heart.
What
But
makes you
that's
think what makes you think that?
because your best friends hate me. Um, yeah, I got a message today about Fred Fest, so that is on my mind. Are you familiar with Fred Fest?
Yeah, it's everybody that is in a band with a guy named Fred or a person named Fred. They are at this show.
Taking Back Sunday, Color Fred, Breaking Pangea. Remember Breaking Pangea? Come on.
Yeah, the Flintstones. Come on.
Oh, that's true. But speaking of
Limp Bizkit's gonna be there. It's gonna be crazy.
whatever, there were some, you had told me months ago, back when you used to like talking to me, that you were going to get some famous people to come to Frederick. I won't name them, but is that not in the works anymore?
They are all unavailable. Thousands of dollars were offered, but
Really?
mhm,
From the
yeah,
Could Be Better Fund?
and ticket sales. Yeah.
If we have that, I know, we can't, we probably
I
shouldn't
mean,
talk about that, but
listen, it is the season for people to show their tax returns, if we're being honest. So
uh, I
so
just want to know where my cut is.
yeah, me too.
By the way, as I said to Chris before we went on air, I have not drank over the last month, and I am drinking now in honor of what I thought was going to be our final podcast, but you say there's going to be a couple more, correct?
Yeah, management came back and said, "Hey, we need to have some more content for the people that listen. They're hungry hippos, and so we are trying to please the masses. So there'll be a couple more. We've been doing some different things, right? We've got those bootlegs that are been coming in every other week, and people seem
Yeah,
to listen to them just as much as they listen to this one. So that's cool.
which is which is nothing. It should be said that Chris gets all the credit though for this season. He really did a lot. He put together the bootleg thing, and I
Well, I
guess
mean,
what is this? Is 4 or 5?
so this is
Season
uh
4 or 5.
oh, for us, this is season 4 for us, and this is episode 89.
So if there's a 5, we've every season we've reinvented this in some way.
Yeah. To
If
our
there's a
detriment, maybe. I don't know.
we should do a 5. We should hit 100, and we should do special things.
I am cool with doing 100 and then never doing it again. Like I love it, right? Like this is a lot of fun and I have a blast doing it and um being able to talk to people that honestly only being able to talk to people that I like has been a lot of fun. Like there's we haven't had any bad guests this season. There hasn't been anybody that I wasn't super reluctant to talk to that we had to talk to. It's been great for me.
No, it's that makes one of us. But I will say
That's true.
there are a couple house cleaning things on that end that first of all, I want to get to our favorite guest of the year of the season. But before we do that, I want to take because I've got 2 people to call out. One, Chris and I have not received the best steak in Frederick yet. And we have podcast evidence. If we recall, this season, the fine people at what the hell is
Thatcher and Rye.
Thatcher and Rye, they said, "Oh, we have great steak. We have not taken them up on that yet." Chris, you were usually so good about this, so I'm waiting for you to write that email and pressure them into inviting us, and at the very least hold a live episode of the Could Be Better podcast in that courtyard.
Yeah, all of that sounds like a whole lot of work. So like I will get right on that. But also it's been pretty tough to get any sort of like administrative stuff done since we moved out of the Could Be Better studios. And front desk Brett is no more. So it's been hard. They've been
Well, it's
looking for
also too our mafia meeting place too is not a place where we meet anymore. So we don't meet, we don't talk, and we don't have a secretary because that mother flipper. I
I
won't
would say
say.
I would say receptioner, but that's me.
So here's the other thing. Speaking of receptioners, did you see this? Did you see that Alive at Five has their own podcast that is put together by what is that? There's some Frederick podcast.
Oh, the network that is all connected to Key 103.
Is that what? So what's it called? I don't remember what it's called.
Frederick Elites. Um
That's
uh
okay. That's not going to do us any favors.
Well, I don't think the way that you're talking about it gives us any favors either. It sounds like you're kind of poo-pooing it.
Yeah, they can get fucked. I'm pretty angry about this because here's why. Because like I said, oh, I'm two glasses of wine and a pint of bourbon. We have a situation where all these people they've already have they have the shows in the can from what I understand. I don't know if you've seen this, but they've already interviewed all of these bands um, and bands, by the way, which have not been on this podcast because they just say we don't like you guys, and I don't blame
I,
them for that necessarily, but we also haven't reached out to them, right? Is that what
so
you were gonna say?
no, 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 no. So let me look at the this lineup real quick because it one might argue, not me. Like somebody might argue out there. Like one, I mean, I can hear
Somebody.
I can hear our listeners screaming right
Definitely
now.
not Chris, though.
No, definitely not me. There's a lot of not real bands playing. Like there's a lot of cover
Well,
bands. There's a lot of not stuff that like I would be interested in talking to. But there, I'm looking at the list, right? And I see the Feehan brothers, which, okay, friends of the show, formerly of Old Mother Brewing, currently
formerly
of,
of.
yeah, Sean, their bass player, used to be,
Oh,
he was the head brew guy at Old Mother. And Marcus is in that band now too. Formerly Ben of Crooked Hills. Who knows what Ben
yeah, see,
is
I
now?
have. Another problem that I have.
Wait,
Here we go.
one
Yeah.
more though.
Oh, go
Karen
ahead.
Jonas is there, and
I know.
she's been dogging you for a bit.
Yeah, I
We
know.
have Asa and Friends at 11:05, which again, Asa, that's great. And
Did you tell me Asa won a whammy?
yeah, anyone away me, dude. The guy is taking over. And here's the last one. We also booked Nick Fry and Sons of Thunder at 11:05. So I mean, like we've worked with all these bands, and to be honest, I think we did stuff with them before they played Live at Five ever. So not that like, hey, we're a stepping stone, but I think we're a stepping stone. We booked the Feehan boys at Old Mother. We have done stuff. We wanted to do stuff with Karen, so maybe we just kind of like manifested that. Asa, I mean, come on, it was one of the best shows we've ever done. And 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 we booked Nick Fry. So it's just like uh, they're
This is
friends
what
at
I
this
love.
point.
This is what I love about this. This is what I love about this. Asa asked me to play drums for him at our fantastic show last year, and then gets the big time gig. Asked
Did you
me
get
if I got
asked?
a phone call.
Well, no,
That's
he
a
knows.
no.
Well, he knows, and we're burying the lead here, but like he knows like you're a recent father, right?
Nah,
I
he
mean, so,
doesn't care. Probably actually doesn't. He probably doesn't remember at this point.
I don't know. I wish I had the ability just to call him right now and add him into it because you know he would.
Do you know who's been great? You know who's been absolutely great is Demetrius. Demetrius checks in with me like once a week, not even joking. So shout out to him. This is, you know what? Right now, we're about 5 minutes into this episode. This is the best I felt all season on could be better. Come on, let's sling some more mud. Nobody's listening.
I just love that you got partly perturbed by me saying anything about Alive at Five's podcast called the Frederick Elites, but like then like but then we go into a whole thing and it's like it's fine. It's just convenient and people do it for free. I mean, everything's through the Downtown Frederick partnership, and we are just not polished enough for those people. It's just what it is.
We're gonna put in a bid for next year. I'm gonna talk to them. That's what I'm gonna
I don't think that will make a difference.
and I'll use this episode as exhibit A. That's what
Point of
I'll
reference. No,
yeah,
no, no. I
point of
mean,
reference.
it's just I've
I
you know,
just here's what annoys me about it. Here's and then I'm sorry to cut you off, but here's what annoys me. I know exactly how that went down. I know exactly how those conversations went, and I know exactly how that podcast came to be. And I say that without having a conversation with anybody in Frederick for months, but you know exactly what I mean. Am I right, Chris?
you're right. And even if you're wrong, it's not a big deal. Like at the end of the day, like none of it really matters. And I think that the cool thing for the we've talked actually more than you're giving us credit for, but like we have talked where it's like there was a stretch, which by the way, maybe I've talked to you about this, but I've talked to a lot of people recently, but like I have a 5-year journal, right? So like on every page is a day of the year, and then each section is a blank spot for the year. So I'm now on my fifth rotation through this, and so starting in February and ending in about June, I get really depressed. And so the March phone calls that you and I have been, yeah, everybody just wants something, and I feel like nobody like cares about this scene, and there's all these things that people are hopping up and popping up and trying to do stuff, and like I'm having a hard time feeling like not just being taken advantage of, even though like we're offering something that like I think is
I
really good.
enjoyed that phone conversation.
I
That was the
know.
only
And
time you called me.
that's not true. We had a couple other calls, but um, but the idea of that though is I think it's awesome. There are other opportunities in Frederick that we're not a part of because at the end of the day, like we're not the best stop, right? We don't pay the people the most amount of money. We do not give people the most amount of press amongst the most amount of people. We don't have the best sound. We don't have um the best temperaments for dealing with
Oh, that's a
ego.
direct shot at me.
No, me 100%, because I just this is coming out the week after the show at Old Mother, but like Dejan and Aze sent me a text, and like I was like really direct with them, and I hated how it came off, and
Oh,
but it
you
was
were
like
shitty to them. You were classic Chris.
not classic Chris, not good Chris. And so it's just like those things.
That's
So there are people that are way better at these things that we're doing, but the things that we do, haha, I really think there's nobody else that does that. Now, maybe that's just because we're doing whatever's left, but there is a really cool scene at Old Mother. There's a really cool vibe in that back room. There's really good beer there. There's really good food there. We do pay bands really well for a free show that's all ages. We do something that ends by 10 o'clock. Like there's a whole lot that we're crafting that's really good. And so we're booking all styles of bands. We're doing all sorts of things. And so like I'm 100% okay with having that be what it is. And for me, it's like, hey, like if Asa never plays for us again because he's only going to be doing the anthem here on out, I love that. Then he can do a cool pop-up show with us one day when he's like, between tours and is writing his new novel or bio, and that's or autobiography. And that's so cool. Like I would love to be just exactly what it is and not do anything more.
And here's the thing, it doesn't work like that. It just doesn't work like that. These people go away and they don't care. They just don't care. I don't. So I kind of thought I got a text from you last week because I think yeah, I did get published
Mhm.
my bitchy column about how everything goes down. Now there was recently a show in Frederick at Cafe 611 in a band that we have worked with multiple times in the Could Be Better sphere. And I shot somebody in that band. God, takes everything I
So
have not to name
no,
names, but
no,
I'm
no.
not gonna
It's fine to name names, but I do want to say, and you will probably get upset with this because she's like your friend, but like it is really weird when like an editor says I don't want to talk to these two bands that are accessible and want to talk to press. Like I get it, you want to talk to someone that's not a new face, but it is
That's true, but nobody from those bands also said they would talk to me.
you could have talked to Dumb Valley.
I don't know that.
You were from what you told me was you were told not to talk to
I
them.
was, that's true, but I could have also reached out to Evan. and said, "Hey, Evan," and
He
he
and he
could
would
have not gotten back.
he would have
No,
responded. Evan loves
that's
us.
not promised. That's not promised. But anyway, and I wrote this thing, and nobody cared about the thing because if anybody would have cared, then you would have told me because I do know that. Chris tells me when people care or if they drag me, which
Yeah,
I'm a
yeah,
very appreciative of. But it's like I got, and her and I went back and forth with the column. The original thing I filed was not what ran. I had to revise it a few different times.
yeah. Of course.
And what one of the main things that she wanted me to add was the playlist experience. When I would say,
Hmm.
this goes back 10 years now, when I would say, okay, well, I want to book this band. So I'd have to ask a friend of a friend who knew a friend in the band. And then somewhere along the way, this happened multiple times. Somebody in that chain would say, no,
So
no, we don't want to do that.
so
It's like, and it's the same thing with this podcast in particular. Well, I don't know. We
yeah,
haven't been great about trying to guess or anything, but it's like it's not like we are against people. And I think that's what I'm piggybacking on what you just said. It's not like we're sitting here trying to have a negative effect for sure. We definitely want to have a
yeah,
positive effect. And on top of that, we are actually trying to bring people together and we are doing the best we can when you talk about money, when you talk about booking, when you talk about venues and bills and bands and all this stuff. At some point, I don't know if anybody turned against us, if we just aren't cool or whatever it is, but it's like we have the best intentions, right?
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I there's so much to unpack. I mean, so the 611 thing, your article, which I can link to in the comments because I think it was interesting for people to read. It's like there's a lack of appreciation for press, and maybe it's like it's a punk mindset. Maybe it's a well, we don't want to care about. I mean, maybe people think the Frederick News Post is the Frederick elite. I really don't know. There's a lot of good stuff in the local newspaper outside of like
How could you
races.
say it's I don't know if it's
As
elite.
long let me finish. As long as so Frederick News Post, maybe it's just because it's a local newspaper run by a former super rich guy and all the things and all the stuff. Maybe there's some baggage. I don't know. But aside from the cool things that are in the FNP, the most annoying thing are the racists in the comments whenever there's a mugshot of person of color. And so that I am not a big fan of, and I have stopped subscribing because it's stupid. So if you want my money back, give me something to pay for. Now, that being said, um, when it comes to talk to uh, Express and playlist and all the things, I've always been so gravitating towards that, right? And so I think it's just so cool. When it existed, it was awesome. Playlist ended before I had something to do. But also like I love hearing people complain about there's not venues and there's not these things and there's not these stuff, but then they don't work with the people that help do those things. And I'm not saying that about us. I'm just saying like when playlist went away, there was a void, and that's there was a whole lot of work to that. There was a whole lot of connections you had to do to make all that stuff happen. And it's like it kind of like started and ended with you and getting paid from the Frederick News Post. But there's a lot of things that like went into that we just don't have the quote unquote infrastructure for right now. And we definitely don't have with could be better enterprises. So it's like that's an interesting thing. But there are, I mean, we have volunteers that help us with a lot of our shows, whether it be sound or running doors. So it's like we have a decent community. It's just really not scalable. It's really hard to do more than what we're doing now. And I don't think bands get that. They just take. And I'm not
The,
speaking about all bands, just some.
the old mother thing is really, really cool. This should be said. The old mother thing, remove us. It's really cool. It's just really cool. They have a really cool stage. It's a really cool spot, really great beer. The food there, those guys are great. Like everything is great there. And I was just talking, somebody was texting me literally yesterday about hey, could you help me get an old mother sometime over the summer? And I said, well, we're booked through the end of the year, essentially. And that's because we are. And it's not necessarily because and people should know this too. This is why I'm saying this. It's not that we own every day there. It's that anything that we have set sort of limitations on what we do. And Chris, correct me whenever I say anything wrong, but it's like we only have the infrastructure, the time, the brain power, the whatever between life and everything else to do what, three shows a month there, if that, and then the occasional thing that pops up. There are other days of the week that people can go do stuff there, and that's fine. And I'm not saying I would like to think we don't gatekeep at all with any of that. Like Old Mother's open to anybody, but if I would say that anybody who goes there and knows it's under our umbrella knows you're getting the sound guys, you know you're getting X, Y, and Z, you're getting this amount of money, blah, blah, blah. So I think that's a really cool thing. And I do wonder, I don't know if this is the right word, but I wonder if do you think we get in the way of Old Mother expanding? Do you think if we did more there, they could, it could be a 4 night a week music venue in that sense? Now,
Yeah.
the look
I,
on
I,
your
I
face was,
yeah, I mean, I don't, yeah, for those that do the Patreon and can see the audio or the video, it's like, yeah, for me, it's like they're not a music venue, right? Like they love having music, but they are not a music
but
venue,
they're the
right?
closest thing to have something legitimate in that sort of
100%.
area.
But whenever people are like, "Oh, I want to see music from bands from all over on a Tuesday night," I'm like, "Yeah, so they can play in front of 5 people." That sounds terrible, right? Like Frederick's just not Baltimore. Frederick's not DC. Frederick's not Richmond. Like it's Frederick. So it's like having shows on Fridays and Saturdays, like that's really really good. And that's enough for right now. But also, it's like they are a bar and restaurant, right? Like they have other things. They have trivia on Thursdays. They have other things that also
Right.
bring in a ton of people. Like those things are packed. They have darts on Wednesday nights, and it's like those are also packed. And it's just like there's not a lack of music venues. There's a lack of businesses that want to do live music, and I think that's the way to think about it. Not hey, we need more music venues. Like, no, no, no. We need more people that are open to doing stuff. Like, so last week, so last Saturday, right? So May 18, the show at Old Mother was Aze and Dejan, full band, killer, all the things. Great. Afterwards, there was a just like a DJ set at that new cafe that's right across that's right down the door, a couple doors down from JoJo's. And so it's like that's really cool. Like they're having different things in that cool little co-op market type thing. And it's like, it's awesome. But that's what we need. Like we need more places that are willing to have people show up with a couple speakers and understanding that like things can't be super loud and having cool bands. And it's like that's what I think is lacking in Frederick is the creativity for spaces because then you get places like FAC that just sell their building for no reason because they bit off more than they could chew. And so it's like that part kind of stinks where I I just think that the scope is small and I don't think the community's put first in a lot of decisions. It's always money. And I think that's where we differ. And I think that's why we worked with Old Mother so well is like we're able to be sustainable, but we're not blowing budgets for a terrible show because a band just wants a ton of money. We're not underpaying bands because we're taking money off the top. We're trying to build a sustainable thing, and I think we're doing an okay job at that. But I think more creativity in spaces that already exist. I think that's a key.
Yeah, you need multiple places. This is a good place to insert the fact that our old stage or Old Mother's old stage at Old Mother is now heading out to Rockwell at the other location. I talked to Matt this week because he's really, really excited and he's like, can we get more stuff in here? And you know what? Anybody listening, anybody in a country band who's ever listened to this, which is -3 people, he said, "Do you know any country artists?" And I said, "Well, if you want to pay for them," and that seems to be where a lot of things get hung up anymore. I don't blame anybody in this. I don't blame the venues saying we don't have $800 to $1,000 to shell out for a band that might not bring enough people to bring that money back in. I also don't have a problem with bands saying, "Hey, we are worth $1,000 or we are worth this amount of money." More power to you. That's great.
Yeah.
So he's got his own thing going on out there. Demetrius, where they're going to do another hip hop showcase at the end of June, June 28th, I think is the date we settled on yesterday. That's a Friday. And Demetrius is, I guess he's doing some Wednesday thing or he's doing some Saturday thing. Do you know about this, Chris? It's some like residency somewhere downtown.
It might be that Nirvana thing that which is with Baspy at that location right down the street from JoJo's, I think. I could be wrong.
Is yeah, there's just a DJ, he said. It's a different
Hmm.
DJ all okay, so
Yeah.
that might be it. So it's like these things are growing and that's great. But they're also like it's met with a certain amount of cynicism that I don't think is productive for anybody. And it should be like here's the thing about it could be better too, not to really get way deep on this, but you and I have been doing this. Like we said this is the fifth season. This started, it's 2024. We were doing the podcast in 2020. It's 4 years of this stuff and booking. It
Podcast
wasn't,
was 2022 and it's season 4. Sorry to cut you off.
but it wasn't just, well, we were booking before that, though. We booked shows before all of
Our
that.
first show was January 25th, 2020.
Okay. Well, there you go. Perfect. We're now about 4.5 years into that. And there might not be a lot of long strides in a short amount of time, but there is something to say for the amount of time that this happened. Like, look at the idea, and then I will shut up about this because now it feels like it is getting a little too self-aggrandizing. But the idea that a place like Old Mother has gone through multiple stages and multiple sound systems in that amount of time, which is only growth, which only means, and we got some grant money that we gave to all these people too. I think those things are good. It doesn't mean that we should stop. It doesn't mean that that's the end. It just means that like this stuff can happen. And if you don't see immediate change or immediate results, that's okay too. Just keep building, I guess is my point.
Yeah. And I think we talk a lot about that. It's like, the big thing for us is just not stopping, but it's like I think there is a stopping point. I don't know what that looks like, but I do have a hard time with bands only circling their orbit where it's like, well, hey, we just want to do a show no matter what. Like I've had a couple interesting conversations with people just not realizing it's like, hey guys, like we do free shows that are all ages that end by 10 for a reason, but then also we don't compete with other places. So the nice thing about that is like our shows are done before other shows start, and that's awesome. However, if you play NOLA on Friday and then you play at Old Mother the next Saturday, you hurt your draw on your NOLA show. And it's like, I love Aaron and I love everyone that's over there. And I don't want bad shows anywhere. So we have things in there where it's like, give it some time between shows. Just do things. And I've gotten a lot of weird pushback from mostly younger bands and mostly like more punk bands. But also I get a lot of cover bands that they're like, yeah, hey, we're playing Mount Airy on Friday. Can you book us in Frederick on Saturday? I'm like, yeah, for what? $800? Like, oh, $900. I'm like, we're not a winery. No shots fired. But like we're just not that type of place. And I think that takes an adjustment. And I feel like the people that reach out to us that are original bands and have reasonable budgets, like they have a great time. And I think for me, it's like we don't have a overflowing inbox anymore of people wanting to come on the podcast. We have Death by Indie waiting to come on the show. That's the only one we have in our queue right now of like people waiting to come on. Everyone else is like they've already done it or they don't want to do it. They're not interested. They don't know what podcasts are. They don't care about podcasts. They just want to do their thing. I don't know. But
What I
yeah.
do think, what I do think, what bugs me about this, and there have been guests on this show that I would put in this category. So if anybody's mad, be mad at me. But I do think that people think, well, I'm going to go on this podcast, or I'm going to sit for an interview to be in the newspaper, and then I'm going to have a show at Old Mother, and then on top of that, I'm going to play NOLA within a few weeks after that, or maybe they get to Sky Stage because everybody plays Sky Stage at some point, and there are so many opportunities around town, and it works, and it's varied, and it's good. And they say they get to the end of that sort of cycle. You get your article in the
Hmm.
newspaper, you get your episode of the podcast, you get your 2 or 3 shows in town at really cool venues, and you even get some crowds. It's not like you're playing to an empty room. And then they say, well, why am I not playing the 930 Club? And why am I not playing Ramshead? Why am I not going to these other places in cities that are close? Like it just didn't work. This should have worked. And I think perhaps things like this, things like could be better, things like the local media, quote unquote, sort of get blamed for that in some way. Then you say, well, it's just you're just not cool. You talk to the local newspaper, you're just not cool because that it didn't work and now we just look like rubes and it doesn't really matter. And from here on out now, okay, we're only going to do X, Y, and Z. And I've seen bands take that approach too.
Yeah.
They've shunned me, or maybe I have gotten one interview through the years and whatever. And then you get to the other end of it, and it's like, well, you're still not getting that show at the 9:30 club. And
Yeah.
you like there's still no lockbox for any of this unless if you know Seth Horowitz and you can get in with IMP and that's it. And at one point too, we were seduced by all of that. We worked with some of those IMP people and it didn't go the way that we hoped it would. And that was to only lift up people in Frederick to get down
Yeah.
there. So there is no, you know, magical equation. But when people don't get that, they sort of place blame.
Yeah, and I'm not really sure if I understand that blame. Like it's an interesting thing of people saying, "Oh, we don't talk to the local paper. We just want to talk to like, the Times or Pitchfork or Brooklyn Vegan or whoever it might be." But it's like those are places are also dying, right? And so it's like even if you do get a article in some place, it's like newspapers are generally doing bad, right? I mean, like we'll see what that new The Office spinoff does for dying media, like print newspapers, but like who knows? But I do have a hard time because it's like, oh, I've always wanted to do that stuff, right? Like I would be fine with oh, okay, so Sam Powers is the
Well, I was
band,
just
right?
gonna say,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
not to cut
It's
you off, but I was just gonna say you're in an active band, a
I
newly sort of active band. What is your approach when you guys talk about this? What is that?
so the thing is, like, we never hear back from people. So like I'm a child of that thing where, hey, I'm used to sending emails and not getting any response. And so I will send off things and ask, and then it's like, and then I'm constantly let down or disappointed. So then you stop trying. And so that's kind of where it is now, where it's like, hey, we have bucket list ideas of where we want to play and what we want to try to do, but it's like we don't have a whole like so Brody does a lot of design work and we just had a conversation with him some where he's doing a show. He's doing a bunch of flyer work for a band that is playing at a venue in Baltimore soon, and he's going to hit them up to see if we could open up for their show. Like that's kind of the hookup, but it's like there's no press involved. Like we can't email something saying, "Hey, we're putting out new music. Would you want to write about it?" Like I never get any responses from those things ever. Um, uh, Aside from you taking an interest in us years ago when we did the double motorcycle tour and then doing things with the thing and a couple of our friends in Marzi Maddox, booking us to come play on the creek. It's like we've not done the elite Frederick stuff. And I say that elite like as a tongue-in-cheek way of just it's where the upper middle class of Frederick generally goes to hang out, and it's not necessarily a subculture type thing, but we generally vibe in the basements, and that's where we dwell. And so we'll do shows at Old Mother, we'll do shows at FAC, we'll do shows at the former Bent Street bar, the Blue Side, whatever it is now, and then whatever it's going to
It's
turn into. It's
nothing now, right? It's
yeah,
there's nothing there. Yeah.
whatever it turns into in 9 months. But like we've done things at the Eagles Club, we've done things at and whatever that's going to turn into, which I think should be cool. Maybe the we've done things. You and I have done things at New Spire, which is the best sounding room in Frederick. But it's like my bucket list that I would be fine with like hanging it up afterwards is playing the Weinberg. And so it's like that's never going to happen, and I am totally okay with that, and I can come to terms with it. But it's like I don't know what other bands do. Like I look at the Mountains and I think they're just like the epitome of, oh, I would love to be like them, right? Like they get to play the cool Baker Park shows, they get to play the cool Weinberg shows, they get to, and I know you are kind of a connection to a lot of that, but also it's like those, I'm not sure. It starts to feel a little slimy to me as Chris from Could Be Better also booking a Samuel Powers show that I'm also in, and it just feels kind of weird. So it's hard when I feel like um there's not a lot of places for us to play where I'm not connected into it somehow. That's not not dumping on Nola, but it's like I'm really tired and I don't really want to play at midnight on a Friday.
Well, that's the other thing. I mean, you're talking about a different thing there, sort of. It's like now it's like, well, we're okay with saying we don't have this insatiable desire to go play the anthem. We're
No,
okay. We're a
I,
band.
I
You
would
know,
love
like
I would love to do that, but like the reality of us doing that without a manager, without a label, without somebody else that can literally just email or text somebody and say, "Hey, can this band open?" And they say, "Sure." We don't have those connections. And so it's
right.
like, that's I don't know what other bands think about. I know there's not a lot of bands from Frederick that I know that are playing the 930, that are playing the anthem, that are,
No, I know,
so
but yeah, but the point that I'm making is it's like it's not necessarily from what you just said, it's not necessarily, well, we haven't made it this far and we want to make it this far and we haven't, and so we're frustrated and we're not going to do X, Y, and Z. We're not going to do this, and this. You're just saying, like, look, we've done the NOLA thing. We've done this thing in town. We've done X, Y, and Z. There are other things that we'd like to do. We haven't done them yet. If we are going to do anything, we'd like it to be these other things, these
yeah.
things that we haven't done. It's not like you're saying, hey, we need to play NOLA once a month just because we want to have 30
No, no,
of
no.
our friends come out and sell shirts and all of that stuff. But like you guys played FAC, that's a cool room. You never did
Mhm.
that before, like up there. That's super cool. You've been able to do really cool stuff. I mean, even playing the Creek,
Yeah,
a lot of bands have not played the Creek.
100%. And that's the thing is like maybe gratitude is just like a feeling that a lot of bands don't have. Like because a lot of people come to Frederick and they love it, right? We had Flower Bomb up from DC that plays at lots of cool venues all the time. They thought Sky Stage was awesome. Like they were beaming. It was the Could Be Better night last year, and it was a blast. Like it was like, this is so cool. And I'm like, yeah, I do get a little ungrateful sometimes when I see other cities that are big East Coast hubs that are doing big East Coast hub things. And then I look at Frederick, I'm like, oh, why can't it be more? And it's like, what if it's just supposed to be what it is? And so I think that's kind of goes back to 10 minutes ago of like Old Mother. It's like I love where it is now. I know there's dreams of doing bigger things and we can always kind of incrementally grow. And I think that's special. But it's like to say Old Mother's the next 930, that's, just not realistic.
And here's the thing, and maybe this is a good way to wrap it up, but there's sort of a feeling, and you can tell me that I'm 1,000 miles away. So if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But there is that sort of sense, there's that sort of feeling that perhaps that things are stale. Like things are just, you know, everybody has settled into their own pocket. This means this, this means this. There's no disrupting factor with anything. Like you just have, okay, this is what's going on here. This is what's going on here. There's no excitement. Nobody feels pumped about any of this unless if I am detached and you can tell me that. Because, like, at some point, I remember I'm old enough to remember when house shows played that part and it was
Hmm.
like, oh, we have the squad. Oh, this is cool. We're gonna pack a bunch of people into a basement and we're gonna do it. And
There's the place across from the fairgrounds. Well, I forget what that was called. They did shows for a
yeah.
while.
And
So
then,
yeah,
back when I was when I was doing it more
200
often
East.
than not, 200 East, yeah, you had that. But right now, it just feels like everybody's
So,
ready
but
to
like
just lay down.
but it stinks like the 200 East thing too. It's like the article that I guess Lauren, I think she did with Will and the people from the Derby. It's like Will Randall literally goes in there and was like, "Oh, I remember doing stuff at 200 East and how fun that was, and that's cool." And then they start talking about putting in a piano for a jazz bar. I'm like, "You guys aren't from the same planet. Like, you're not like it's not the same things." And so it is just a bit of there is a detachment from the people that used to do stuff that like Artomatic was cool. 200 East stuff
Right.
was cool. And it's like, we just don't have that. The people that wanted to continue to do that, that were constantly shut down by either weird, dumb rules from the city or just dumb people they had to work with that just couldn't make up their mind about a building. It's like they moved on. A lot of friends that I knew that did that, they're all in Baltimore or they've moved on and they're not really doing that anymore. And so I think you're onto something with the staleness, but it's also in the same way, and I'll probably die on this hill because it's a little spicy. In the same way where people try to say Frederick's a foodie town, I don't think Frederick's a creative place. Generally speaking, I don't think there's a whole lot of like when you look at the art that's in here in town, like there is some really cool stuff for Frederick. There's some really good bands for Frederick. Like I don't think there's not a lot. And then the bands that are from Frederick that are now really cool and only playing in one venue in one major city in America that don't respond to my texts or emails anymore that I'm actually friends with. Those people like are really good for Frederick. So it's like I hate that idea that like there's like, and I can tell you with just as many bands as I'm thinking of in my brain that are just good enough for this town, there are a lot of outstanding bands, and I love all of them. Asterisk. But for me, I just have a hard time of like, guys, this isn't like you have to also put in that work to do more. Like the FAC show, like we set up, like we ran sound to do something in that building. Like nothing's given in Frederick because as soon as something is given, it is very easily looked at. Is this yielding profits? If no, shut it down. If no, sell it. If no, stop it. If no, turn it into a bank, turn it into a restaurant, turn it into a whatever. So it's just it kind of harps back to I think we as Frederick doesn't do a great job with being creative. And I think we really want to. And I think there's a lot of really cool creative things that do happen. I think the intersection of it all, I don't think we have a great space to do it. And I think when things are sponsored by people that don't really are involved in the arts community or listen to people in the arts community that are under the age of 50, I think it's really hard.
I think everything that you said is exactly right. And um there are a
And no
few
and
words.
no one cares about this, right? Like this is you and me
Right,
talking. Like
right. Yeah,
this
right.
is why we do this is because you and I will sit over a piece of pizza and this is all we'll talk about. And it's totally fine. But literally nobody cares. They're just like, "Oh, I want to do my emo night. I want to do my 90s night. I want to do my thing night. I want to do a couple shows nights." And then that's it. They don't care about this stuff. And more power to you because I wish I didn't care.
But the thing there are a couple words. One is ego. I don't know what you were referencing when you said that they did a story about 200 East or something or
So Lauren did a thing, and I'm pretty sure it was Lauren. So sorry if it was. I know, big fan, big listener. I think there was a story of the Eagles building being purchased by the Derby, the people in Newmarket,
right.
and so Lindsay Hamilton, friend of the small the small batch Frederick shows we were trying to do at the
Yeah.
upstairs in Idiom in the almost post COVID round one, she's gonna be like the main manager for that entity where the owners are doing the kind of conceptual stuff, but they're taking over the Frederick Eagles building, which again
Right.
sold for a ridiculously low amount of money and all the things and blah 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 blah. That story interviewed Will Randall,
Hmm.
and Will was talking a bunch about doing stuff before at the old F&P building and how cool it was and all these things, but then goes and then turns and it was like, oh, I think you're not connecting how these two things are actually not like each other at all.
And that's actually a problem because the things that happened at that building at 200 East, it was a collective. It was not just one person, it was not just one thing. Here was the magic that came along with it. Everybody was into it. Everybody. It was just the coolest thing. You had local artists doing local art all across the walls and all of that stuff. There were rehearsal spaces that some people are not allowed to talk about where you had I mean multiple bands who used a room as spaces to practice every week, which meant they were
Mm-hmm.
getting better, which also meant that they could come across a member from another band and then say, "Hey, we're playing in Brooklyn next weekend. There's another slot. You want to come?" And this happened a few times. You know, it was the best, at least I could say, musical artists, if not other artists, the best artists in town congregating at this place on their own will. It wasn't just, hey, we're open from 5 to 7 on Tuesdays. So come paint when you want. It wasn't
Right.
that. It was this place where, hey, people could congregate, people could connect. It didn't always work. There were, like I said, a lot of egos, a lot of clashing of a lot of stuff, but it's still sort of it led to this connection and this communal vibe. Like even I knew bands that didn't necessarily, people in bands that didn't like each other in other bands, but at that time they supported those other bands. They would go
Sure.
see the band's shows and they would say, "Hey, why don't we hop on this show together?"
And that doesn't happen at all anymore.
It doesn't, and that's the thing. You need, you know, you really hit on something that I've really thought of. I've been away from Frederick now for almost 6 months, living. Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And I keep saying this to everybody around me, which is only two people, and one of them can't even hear or understand words. It's it's a grimy town up here. It is a grimy town. But you want to know what? Like, I just got like a notice in 3 months the Maine is gonna come and play, and they're gonna play to like 300 people, and like it's okay. You have a fried chicken spot that's open at 3 a.m. that you can get on any weeknight. It's okay. I feel like with Frederick, it's just like somebody wants to do something to change everything, and then they want all of the credit for it. And the minute they don't get the credit for it is the minute that everything falls apart because of the ego. There is no grime. There is no grime in Frederick. There just isn't. You need that 200 East where it's dirty and it's shitty and it's like, oh, there are some bad feelings here and
Yeah.
everything is a little bit uncomfortable, but we all stick up for each other. We love each
Yeah.
other. We do this stuff together and we can help lift each other up. Everybody is so segmented. It's a
Yeah.
really hard thing to bring people together under that.
And I think it's hard where people the sense of community and doing things together as an organized unit that has compromising involved is not a super great trait a younger generation has. And I'm not pooping on the not millennial whatever.
Oh, shoot, you go down that
What's
road, you
but like it's just like, and then there's also a problem of millennials, I guess, which are you a millennial technically?
I'm 40, so I don't
I don't
know.
know. I'll have to look up the thing, but like, there's the idea of like, we have a problem of like, well, hey, it was like this for us. Let's recreate that. It's like, well, that's not really what it's supposed to be for. So like 200 East will never happen again that way, right? That's a
Right.
lightning in a bottle moment. And I think that's so special. That's a time capsule thing. That's awesome. There was a really cool house of show vibe and circuit in Frederick for a while. That'll never happen again. Like in that same way. Now it could happen in a variation. It could be a little special. It could be a little different, but it's like, we're all getting older. We're all perpetually tired. I do think there's a lot of factors of lack of effort and lack of trying gives you lack of results. And so I get that. Nothing worth doing comes easy. So like I get all of that. However, um, it does feel lonely sometimes. And it's really tiring when it kind of feels like there's just you and a couple people trying to keep this candle from being blown out, and
Hmm.
everybody around you says, well, we want to keep the candle going, but like by all of the sounds and all of the whispers that they say, as they're trying to say we want to keep this going, it's also putting it out because they're actively not contributing of putting their hands around this flame to protect it. And so I have a really difficult time with the both sidisms with people that don't understand investing in your local art community is not a net win. And it's really nice when people have an excess of money and they want to gift their community with a building that's not in use or that will eventually turn into a hotel, but maybe not. Or like other things in their areas, like, hey, this is excess. I don't need to monetize this. So let me find a group of people that I trust to do something different and special that like I'm not capable of doing. I would love for that to exist again. But again, I'm not a millionaire, and if I was, I would have bought the FAC building for $750,000 because that's also ridiculous. What is wrong with that building? You know, that they're selling it. Anyway, here's the thing. I am grateful that we get to do this. I'm enjoying every second of all the things, of all the emails that I answer, of all the conversations that you and I have, of all the responses we don't get from all the shows we do get to do, from all the shows that we want to do that we'll probably never be able to do. It's all a blast. It's all worth it. But it cannot be just Chris and Colin. Like it can't be that. And so you know, for the five people that listen to this that are all out of state or don't go to local shows, it's like I appreciate you listening and I wish this would get through to more people. And we had these conversations where people want to contribute and it's just not the times. And I'm maybe you know, maybe it's just not that good. Right. But to
I don't agree with anything that
well,
anything
so
what I think. I mean, I just you can create this no matter what. No matter, you can create a sort of environment, an atmosphere, something that everybody believes in. That will never die. And we can all, like, to me, and I do this too. I'm not just saying, I'm not throwing stones. It's like I do this too. It's like, oh, well, it's a different world. People don't go to shows. Everybody just wants to live online. People go out of their house. There's no, blah, blah, blah. There's no buy-in. You can make that happen. Like, people can make that happen.
Hmm.
It's just a matter of, you know, consistency and work and a lot of things falling into place. Like, for instance, we've talked about 200 Diesel a lot in this podcast. Like that, if the goal was over a 3-year span to make X amount of money, it wasn't going to do that. It was never going to do that. But if the goal over a 3-year span was to have really cool shows where, maybe once or twice a year you pack in 500, 600 people, which is what we did, we can do that, like
Hmm.
that. And maybe that can be applied to Old Mother in some way. Maybe that can be applied elsewhere in some way. I don't really know. Maybe the new Frederick Arts, maybe Newspire. Newspire is another thing out there that is an asset in that town that could be a lot more than it is. But now it falls under the guise of the city. So a lot of people just say, don't really want to deal with
And
that.
and they do have a really good deal now too, where it's a 70-30 door split. So like bands do get theirs and they can find ways around. It's not that bad. It's just a really big room. And so it has to be, you gotta work. It can't just be, hey, I'm doing a show um for my mom,
But look,
right?
look at the best night Newspire Arts ever had. There was a band called Roswell Kid. They
Mm.
headlined that night. There, So Meets Body played, if I recall. There was
Bro,
a,
Christmas in America was way bigger.
but I'm just saying, like, you look at that, there was a stage, there were so many people there. Everybody remembers that night. That could happen again. It could happen, like I said, 3 or 4 times a year. You know, I don't know. I don't know if it's bureaucracy. I don't know if it's just a sort of apathy toward everything. But I will push back on the idea that it's like it's impossible. I don't think it's impossible.
I don't think it's impossible. I just don't think it'll ever be exactly the same. And I know you and I don't care if it's exactly the same. We just want to see something thrive. And I think that involves when all people are together. And I think, everyone has to kind of compromise on how that looks. And I'll go back to saying that compromising is a lost art. So um speaking to myself there, right? I think there's a lot of things where we always say, yeah, it could be better, but then it still goes our way. So maybe not. But this was exactly what I thought this episode was going to be, which which is you and I talking about things that I mean, if people ever want to know, oh, what did Chris and Colin talk about? It's literally this stuff, right? And so we
It's the best of the 90 episodes.
maybe I feel like whenever we get to a stretch, it's I don't know. It's just I just love that I just dumped all over my favorite place to live and saying how it's not a creative space and or it's not that creative of a space and I'm just going to live with it. So,
It's a call to
um
action. It's a
hey,
call to
listen,
action.
write in. Let's get angry, disagree because if we can start to disagree then we can know what we can agree on and I think that's a beautiful thing. So, I am uh so grateful for the sponsors this season for giving us money to do things and for letting us do some cool ads and to bring awareness to the fun things that we get to do with uh with local businesses that care about the things that we get to do, which is caring about Frederick music. And so that's really special. So thank you to Old Mother Brewing Company. Thank you to Specialties. Thank you to the Let There Be Rock School. You all are um, forever in our hearts and in our pockets. So thank you guys. I think on that note, we're going to place some ads here at the end and we're just going to run them all. We're going to run them all together. So if you heard more talking, we're just going to hear some more. No music because that's silly because obviously we don't care about music because we just don't. All right. What else am I missing? Any closing thoughts?
Uh, no, go to Fred Fest.
Go yeah, go to Fred Fest. Jack Funk's gonna be there. Um, um, And more bands will be
Actually,
there.
I will say this. At the end of June, uh, I do believe the Bikes Double
Oh,
or Nothing
Bikes is
tour.
playing. They're playing Fred Fest too.
They are, and we're gonna be at Sky Stage Double or Nothing. So that might be the first time Baby Hubie gets to
See Dad
uh
play.
yeah, that could be something. So hopefully
Do,
people show out for that.
do you have a name that you would like to be called?
That Double or Nothing?
No. You specifically. Like, so when Hubie starts saying things, are you hoping for
Oh,
Dada? Hoping for Daddy? Hoping for
I don't,
Father?
that's a great question. I don't
Are you
know.
hoping for Poppy? Is there a
Oh,
is there a Scottish variation of that?
I hadn't thought of that. I'm into that. I'm taking that. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
They love it when they call me Big Poppy. That's
I love it. All right. Well, this was me hanging out with my best friend that I've not seen in a long time. And Colin, I
this is
love you so
great.
much. This was so
Oh,
much fun. I hope 5 people listen to this, but I'm afraid more people will hear it. So that's going to be fun. Um,
cheers.
cheers to that. Yeah, I got some bourbon in mine. So clink. Um, all right, this is it. Here's some
Here's
some
saves the day at your funeral.
God, yeah, I wish. Saves the Day is still one of my favorite bands, I think, of all time. And here are some ads from some of my favorite people of all time. Are you in a band in need of merch to hustle or entice your fans who won't buy your latest album?
How about a business simply looking to spread the word about your brand that you want to be the next goopy lifestyle movement?
Specialties in Frederick is the place for you. Supporting local artists, businesses, and really everything else in between. Specialties is the premier printing shop for anyone trying to expand their presence through pretty much everything that can be worn. And yes, even that.
Be it embroidery, apparel, or promo products, Special Tees make sure your designs stand above the rest, sort of like The Undertaker versus Yokozuna at WrestleMania 9. Tell them Could Be Better sent you and get 10% off your first order today. To learn more, visit them online at www.special-tees.com. That is www.special-tees.com.
So you say you want to be a rock and roll star? It's easy. Well, kind of. Just visit the Frederick Let There Be Rock School in Frederick, Maryland to get your superstar dreams off the ground with your first lesson free if you tell them Could Be Better sent you. That's right. Free. Frederick. In addition to offering lessons on everything from voice to guitar, Let There Be Rock School in Frederick also provides students with opportunities to perform live and on a stage in front of a crowd as part of the school's showcase of events, including at Old Mother Brewing Company. To learn more about the school and all the things that they have to offer, visit www.frederickrockschool.com. And again, if you tell them Could Be Better sent you, you'll get your first lesson free. Free. Superstardom, or at least getting better at playing Take Me Up by Franz Ferdinand, is right around the corner.
The Could Be Better podcast is recorded somewhere with suspect Wi-Fi in the United States of America.
We've been without a studio for several decades, but have finally moved to the real estate where the talks tick and the West's yay.
What?
Actually, we're live now, but you're listening later. So please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Threads, and Blue Sky. And don't forget to check out our website for literally everything else at www.couldbebettermeh.com.
Also, pretty please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Overcast, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Or don't, and then let us continue believing what we're doing has purpose and meaning, and you like us. And
plus, don't forget to check out all of our other podcasts exclusively within the Could Be Better Podcast Network, which includes just us for right now, as the other pods be sleeping.
Hey, shout to Kiki, shout to Stitch, shout to my magnum opus ish. And hell, if all else fails, check out Smartless, because we were friends with Jason, Will, and Sean.
Wait, we know those guys?
Of course. Welcome to Arrested Development. I'm Colin McGuire.
And I'm Chris Perry. Thanks for listening, and don't forget, this always could be better.